There we go.
Hi, my name is Steve Henson, and this is the beginning of episode 2 of Q&A.
Good afternoon. I'm Xingle Shen, I'm a radiation oncologist, and I just want to thank everybody for their support of this podcast.
Okay, fire off the questions.
So I think I'll kick it off tonight. Steve, as a survivor, how does it feel? What does it mean to you to have a completely clean PSMA scan?
It gave me the confidence to know that it's priceless. It was after gone through 2 rounds of prostate cancer. You don't have this confidence in life. There's always this fear of something. There was this PSA kind of reoccurrence fear, but that level of scan, I know I've had others, but that one in particular, and maybe it's just me, but it in the whole situation, everyone's unique, but it gave me the confidence to know that I'm not going anywhere. I am here, and I went and got this. I got this little Abby, and that's something that you just can't put a price on. And so I just encourage the use of this beautiful technology to not only help find things that need to be treated, but to also give people hope that they can get on with their lives. They don't have anything to worry about. So that's what it was for me.
That's wonderful.
Okay. All right. Now we got some questions.
All
We
right.
had we had great turnout. So thank you everyone for submitting your questions. That's what drives this show. So the first question for you, Dr. Shen. My last radiation treatment was brachytherapy, the end of April this year. I still urinate frequently, but every 1.5 hours at night.
Yeah.
Will this frequency reduce at some point?
So we're in October, so it's about 6 months after the end of the brachytherapy. Um, some people do take longer to recover from the seed implant. It kind of depends on, how big the gland was, how many seeds, how bad the urination was beforehand. But the short part of it is it can take longer to recover. In general, everybody gradually gets better over a year, 2 years. So it might take, a while longer, but we fully expect the symptoms to get better over time. That said, sometimes we end up needing some medications to help with it as it's improving over time. So if you're not on any medications, it might be helpful to kind of ask about if medications might help. The other thing that I found sometimes it's helpful is cutting out caffeine out of the diet. Now, I don't know how much caffeine you're taking, but try one of the things like anything that kind of stimulates the bladder can cause some of these problems. So cutting out caffeine out of the diet or sometimes cutting out alcohol out of the diet can help with these symptoms.
That was great. Yeah, I remember being told, I had caffeine wasn't really emphasized, but it was alcohol, but it was caffeine for me. That was the
Yeah.
brutal
Hmm.
one. And
Yeah.
cutting it out really made a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. After surgery, if a survivor is looking at a rising PSA which reaches zero point 0.2, it is generally agreed that the reoccurrence has occurred and the salvage radiation should be considered. However, the PSMA scan has increased the likelihood of the cancer location being detected. However, this would normally require a PSA above 0.4 for a reasonable chance for detection. What is the trade-off between early treatment versus being able to zero in on the location, therefore reducing the side effects of radiation?
So that is a really great question. And we run into this kind of dilemma, not infrequently. Um, you know, so we know that the higher the PSA level when you get the salvage radiation, the less successful it is. And that's very, very, very consistent over many studies. So when we treat, we know once we know the cancer occurred, in general, we want to treat earlier. So there's a trade-off though, right? Because you're less likely to find something on scans. So when the PSA is like less than zero point 0.2, you have about 20-ish% chance of finding something on the scans, whereas it rises more up to like 30-40% when the PSA is about zero point 0.4. That said, I think, the percentage of time when that difference in the PSA, that difference in that PSMA scan, finding something and not finding something, that makes a difference, right? Like that the where it's found is distant, like in a bone somewhere, that completely changes your treatment is pretty uncommon. So my general suggestion is to go ahead and get treated when the PSA is lower, even though the PSMA is less likely to show something.
That was a great question. Thanks for answering that. Today, I started my first of 38 sessions of proton beam therapy. I'm 70. I'm still sexually active. My oncologist informed me that my orgasms, oh, we were going to skip this one.
It's okay, we can talk about
All
it.
right, we'll be completely dry. How long before that happens?
I'm not sure. To be
Yeah, I
honest,
don't know. I've never heard
I'm
that
not
question
completely sure.
before.
So I know it goes away. And what people have like when I talk to people about this, it seems to be a little bit variable, and I don't. It's not something I keep track of necessarily, so I don't know how the great, um, great data for it. It
Well,
gradually goes away. Generally, we know that the cells can take a while to stop functioning. Um, so the reason why the orgasm's still there because that's the nerves, but the ejaculate goes away, right? Because that's the material that the prostate gland makes. Um, and so how long does it take for those cells to stop making the material? Probably a few months. But it's gonna be pretty variable between people.
okay. It seems sort of related. Our last question here
Yeah.
tonight. What happens to the dead prostate after proton beam treatment? Does it remain inert in the body?
So very interesting. So uh it's dead cancer cells, but it's not trash, you know. What I mean that by that is there's still tissue there. There is still uh, normal material. So if I do exam, if I do a scan, you'll still see a prostate there. But what's inside the prostate looks completely different. The normal cellular architecture is going to be different. It's going to be replaced by a little bit of scar, a little bit of connective tissue. The regular glands just don't look right. The prostate cells themselves will become very, sorry, the prostate cancer cells become very uh, odd, distorted looking, the dead nuclei. But it's not completely gone. It's just sort of connective, mostly connective tissue that gets replaced. So it's still there. It doesn't do anything. If you feel it, it feels on exam, it feels flat. If you take it out, it feels kind of uh, more thickened. Um, but there's still something there. It doesn't do anything. And it just becomes inert connective tissue.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and
Yeah,
thank you everyone out there who listens in. Please don't hesitate. Throw us your questions. You know, this
yeah,
is what we think is going to provide great value, because everyone who has a question is asking it for someone else. There's just a ton of people, and our feedback has been super positive. And it goes that way too for people that are doing research, doctors that are trying to figure things out. We've got this great group that meets every month, and we can take them their questions, and they can talk when there's just other survivors around,
yeah.
and kind of be a sounding board to get a feel for how, like example, people viewed getting a PSMA scan. So have a wonderful evening, and I bid you all farewell. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.